Girls who have been guilted into going out with a nice guy. How did it go? Story 1. In high school, I decided to give a guy a chance. Maybe I was being snobby. Anyway, we decided to go to the movies. His older sister came along to chaperone and spent the movie sitting in my lap to ensure we didn't get up to anything funny. After the movie, I said I had to go home. Later that night, he called me crying to confess he'd snapped a picture of me and whacked off to it. There was not a second date. Story 2. Guilted into having a 1-year relationship with one. He was super friendly at first, and I was young and naive. He flirted and seemed friendly and honest, so I thought, what the hell? Why not give it a go? Big mistake. I realized pretty quickly that he just wasn't for me, and we had very different political views, very different opinions on things, and he was very degrading of me. He made fun of my weight, made me think I was fat, and I was not at all. Always had a healthy BMI, always have been sporty. But being my young teenage and vulnerable self, that crushed my self-esteem. So when I finally decided I had the guts to say I don't want to be with you anymore, he guilted me into staying with him, saying, "You'll never find a guy who'll love you like I love you. Or if you leave me, I'll kill myself." And all the rest of the typical reasons a nice guy will use to guilt you into staying. In the end, I ghosted him. We were supposed to meet up, but I never showed up. I changed my number, deleted social media for a couple of years, and moved out. After that, I never heard from him again, which I'm happy to say. Story 3. I was on a hiking trip with my sister and other people from our village when we met a group of guys, drinking and having fun. It was on German Father's Day, so it wasn't an unusual sight. For some reason, my sister got into a talk with the guys and invited me to the party at one of the guys' houses later. No big deal. We brought our boyfriend with us and were expecting a good time. But unfortunately, my boyfriend was on a biking trip with his dad, so he couldn't come. We arrive, and nobody else is there. The guy says they'll all arrive later. And we are like 30 minutes after the time he told us to be there. And we start drinking, having fun and everything. He has a thing for me. He invites me to go on festivals with him. My sister's boyfriend tells me I would be stupid if I said no, and he would be going. The others arrive, and at some point, the homeowner asks me to go for a walk. He needs some air. We walk a bit, and suddenly he turns around, telling me I am the love of his life. The girl meant for him, the most beautiful, bright, etc. he has ever seen. I was shocked and didn't know what to say except, I have a boyfriend, you know. He said he didn't care. We were soulmates. And then he just kissed me out of nowhere. Tells me he would break up with his girlfriend for me. He never mentioned her before, and that I should do the same. Story 4. It was at the point in my life when I tried to convince myself I wasn't a lesbian, and now ex-friend told him I wanted to go out with him. And I didn't like him that much, but I didn't want to let him down because he didn't have many friends. It wasn't enjoyable. He talked about 2 things, himself and politics. This was in Obama's second term, and he was conservative. Not like the socially liberal, economically conservative. He was, if I could join the KKK and shoot the end terrorist in the White House, I would. Actual quote. By the end of this, I was sure I was gay. It may seem harsh, judging all guys by one crazy, but seeing the extreme made me realize, why am I even here? I don't like boys. So we paid for the bagels we got, and I gently told him I wasn't interested in seeing him again. He started bawling and asked me why. I told him, nice guy, you're all right, and I'm sure you'll find someone. But I like girls. I'm sorry I led you on. I didn't mean to. He gets mad. He starts yelling about what a cunt I am and how I'll burn in hell. He punched me in the nose and left. It wasn't hard enough to break it, but it was bleeding for a while. Story 5. I have such a deep-seated disgust for guys like this. I've been in situations with 2 of my ex-girlfriends where guys like this would not leave them alone, even though they were explicitly told to fuck off. One ended in a restraining order. One ended after I got involved. It just infuriates the shit out of me that there are so many dudes precisely like this. One of the reasons I use the term disgust is because, as a dude, you can see why they act like that. There are manifestations of completely unrestrained sexual frustration coupled with an abhorrent lack of social skills. Both can usually be remedied if they would make a conscious effort to improve themselves, which involves admitting that they are the problem, which is something they don't like to do. They're just giant, underdeveloped children and are genuinely pitiful to look at. Story 6. After a few years of tepid friendship, something was always a bit off about him, but I thought he was such a nice guy, and I was being a judgy bitch. Plus, he always claimed to be so in love with me. I agreed to a few dates with my friend. On one date, we went out with a group of couples to this state park a few hours away, and I dozed off during the ride home. I woke up to him groping me under my clothes, and when I told him off, He twisted it around like I was being ridiculous and imagined his hand under my bra. We're on a date. Why was I being so weird? Etc. etc. He punched me when I told him I had to cancel our fourth date because I'd gotten grounded after accidentally setting the kitchen on fire, mainly in the face. Punched me. He spent the rest of high school periodically stalking me, my sisters, ranting and raving to everyone about how I didn't understand, and he loves me. He's just so emotional with his true love for me that sometimes he acts without thinking. He's not like those other guys that would make sexual comments about my appearance. Why did I have to be such a Stacy? He's the best friend I've ever had until I ruined it all by willfully misunderstanding and refusing to hear him out or give him closure. On and on. Story 7. I moved to another state with my sister, and she made a few guy friends. One of them saw her with me and begged her to set up a date with me. I reluctantly agreed because she kept saying how sweet and friendly he was. On the first date, he kept gushing about how gorgeous I was, and my smartass made it 100 times better. He would make me his queen and take me around the world, but I had to pay for my meal and his since he spent this time. I told him I was only interested in being friends, and he begged my sister to get me to go out on another date. I declined, and we moved back home, and he came to visit my sister. While he was here, he kept looking at me and telling my sister to hook him up with me. It was my birthday, and I rolled my eyes and was like, come on, I'll take you out too with my friends. At the bar, he was really into me, and I was getting annoyed because he wouldn't let me relax and have fun. I told him I only saw him as a friend, and in front of everyone, he yelled at me, saying what a horrible person I was for leading him on. Nothing but a whore, etc. I ended up crying because it was so embarrassing. My guy friends wanted to go talk to him after they heard what happened. My sister ran up to me and told me to make him happy again. He came down to see me, which is how I treated him. I just went home, and the following day my sister told me how sorry that guy was, and he wanted me to say bye to him at the airport. I didn't. Story 8. I dated a girl whose first date said we had to be home by 9 to meet her parents. You should meet me before I take your daughter out if you're worried about what kind of guy I am. Nope. They wanted to meet the guy who was madly in love with their daughter and wanted to marry her, so they felt they should talk about moving too fast. I told them, I don't know your last name. That's about where I'm at. Story 9. I wasn't necessarily guilted. My parents liked him, and that's probably why I didn't cut him out sooner. I never really saw him as a romantic interest. He did. On paper, I guess he was a good candidate. He had a good job, he was politically active, not for a party I liked, but my parents liked it, etc. But he had this creepy, controlling thing about him. He said he'd help me lose weight while I had hot chocolate, despite never being officially together. He had gotten matching scarification with an ex. I mean, not huge, but a little star, but still. He convinced me to a bar I told him I didn't want to go to. He was manipulative. The bottom line is, when my parents found him the ideal son-in-law, I wasn't into him. I thought he was too old for me. I wasn't attracted to him, and our ideologies and personalities clashed. We went for a few drinks a couple of times, and it only enforced our differences every time. Even years later, my mom was like, oh, he was lovely. So why did it never become a thing?